Good morning, everybody. Welcome to a brand new and beautiful day. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you happen to be around Grandmother Earth. Welcome to Exploring Sacred. This is your show host, Dana, also known as Denise King Francisco. I'm particularly delighted this morning with the guest that I have this morning, as I say, across the pond. She is a dear friend and truly a family member here in the Francisco household. And before I introduce her, I'd like to read something to you. And it's not going to sound quite as nice coming out of me as it would coming out of her, but I'd like to share something from her brand new book, The Way of the Shaman. The world is a weave of energy, and every human being is a thread on that great weave. Each one of us also creates our own unique weave, which vibrates around us. This energetic weave attracts everything we need in life. And I'd like to introduce to everyone my dear friend, my sister in spirit, in soul, Amantha Murphy. Good morning, Amantha Murphy.
Good morning to you, Denise. Lovely to be here.
And it's St. Patrick's Day. There are many here in the States that celebrate St. Patrick's Day. And and here we are together, almost at the time of the vernal equinox, the arrival of spring. And we're talking about your brand new book.
Yes, The Way of the Shaman. The book is my journey. It's my journey through how I was able to draw on and encompass my teachings, the teachings that were gifted to me and the teachings that came through me. And it is a balance of what would be seen as shamanic work in a planetary way, in that I was brought into three realms, the lower, the middle, and the upper realm, to begin with by the tree people. And it is the working with rituals and rites of passage and women's mysteries. And I say women's mysteries, but we also have men that are very much working with this and looking to work with this type or this way of being as well. My personal intention, which has always been with me through my life, has been to assist others and to help them to become all they are meant to be in whatever that is. And so the whole focus of intention around the book was that this could be used, hopefully, as a tool, as a way of opening to what you carry within yourselves. It's very important to me to recognize, to honor, to work with the essence of our ancestors. And for me, the ancestors are in our lower world. They are our roots. That's what grounds us and holds us in the earth. And so using the work can open up for you, or should hopefully open up for you, your way of being, the teachings that you carry. For you carry the bloodline of thousands in your DNA. You carry it in your bones. You carry it in your joints. You carry it in your blood. We all carry the ancestors within us, not just in our build and in our coloring, but we carry it in our way of being. We carry it especially in our reactions, in our instincts. And we carry all that they have gone through, all that they have survived. And we also carry aspects that have not been completed, perhaps not closed. Some patterns that actually take from us, draw from us. If you can imagine, visualize roots coming down through your feet into the earth, deep and strong. Some of those roots pull, drain you, while others feed you and hold you and support you. So in this work, we look at the roots that no longer support, no longer feed, but actually take from you. And with love and recognition and honor, we look at how to release those roots that no longer support. How do we do that in honor of the ancestors? How do we do that in a way that allows them to rest, that allows that pattern, that energy to be released, so it no longer flows through us into those yet to be, children, grandchildren, nephews and nieces, cousins, and just continue to move down through the generations. Each one of us can see patterns. Each one of us can recognize patterns that we carry, that our siblings carry, that come from our parents or our grandparents. And so recognizing those ones that no longer support, we would work with the ancestors on how to release it. And that's always the first part of the work that we do on the way of the Shaman. So I love my work. I'm passionate about my work. And I've been working for, gosh, how old? I've been working for nearly 48 years. So it's a long time. And this book really is part of who I am. It is a large, large part of who I am and what has brought me to where I am today, and the gifts and the understandings that have been given to me by those betwixt and between, by my granny and by others.
Mm-hmm. What I love about your work, since you and I met, oh my goodness, how many years ago, and as I've told you, Todd and I missed having you in our home last autumn, because every autumn is when Amantha comes for a visit and stays and teaches at the School of Sacred Studies. And one thing that I've learned from you, both here in Michigan and the time that I spend in Ireland with you, is that the way that you teach, the way that you've been taught, the way that you write, the way that you share, allows people of any background, ancestral background, to begin to consider that maybe the way that they connect with their roots is also part of something that's very unique to them. And you honor that, because our connection to our ancestors is very unique. It's not a methodology. It's not a science. We are connected by our blood and our bones in very beautiful, unique ways. And you honor that, and you help people to honor that. So I thank your granny and all of your teachers for giving that gift to you so that you could give it forward. It's really made a difference in many people's lives here. So thank you for that, Amantha.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yes, it's been a journey. You know, I've always kind of done my own thing through life. I've always kind of gone my own way. Mm-hmm. And bringing it out into the open market, into the open world, in a sense, through the book, it's quite a step. It's quite a step for me, because I've always been very comfortable just doing my own thing and going my own way. But I felt it was necessary, and nearly 20 years ago, on my 50th birthday, it came to me so strongly that it was time to start making sure that these teachings were not forgotten again, mm-hmm. that they would go out into the world again. And I started talking even then about a book. And I talked about it for years, to the point where I stopped talking about it because I could see people's eyes starting to rise. And I realized I was never going to put pen to paper. It was just not my way. I'm dyslexic, and so reading, writing doesn't come easy to me. And then a few years ago, I spoke with Orla, a dear friend, at the Wise Woman Weekend, which is something that we used to have here in Ireland. It happened once a year, and it was a not-for-profit organization that we would hold for women. And I spoke to Orla, and she agreed to write it for me. And so many people have come back and said to me how amazing how she was able to take my spoken word and frame it into the written in such a way that people who know me or people that have worked with me can actually hear my voice in the book. And I think that actually is quite an art that Orla has, the ability to do that. And the woman thought it was going to take her 18 months, and it ended up taking over 4 years, bless her. And so it's been a journey just to bring it into this format.
Mm-hmm. Todd and I have commented the same thing in reading the book, and I was honored to be somebody who was able to read the book beforehand and to also endorse your book. And Todd and I both have remarked that it is when we read the words, and so thank you, Orla, if you happen to be listening this morning. You did bring the voice of Amantha through onto the page, and the letters and the words lift off the page in the same accent and at the same cadence that Amantha delivers the teachings orally. So it's a superb book. And for those that are listening that don't have a copy yet, Amantha, where are people able to purchase the new book?
Yes, so the book is called The Way of the Shaman, and you can get it from Amazon.com, Amazon.co.uk. You can get it, I believe, you can get it from Goodreads as well, and Waterstones. And if you are in Ireland, then you can get it directly from the publisher, who is Womancraft Publishing, and they are based in East Cork. So the book is published here and it's printed here.
It's a magnificent book. And here in Michigan, we're very excited to be hosting you virtually actually next weekend in 10 days for Shamanic Precessing, the webinar. And so would you talk for just a moment about what Shamanic Precessing is?
Yes, and I can only talk about it what it is for me. And for me, Shamanic Precessing is very much being aware of stepping into the sacred, recognizing everything within the sacred, and holding that space of sacredness with others and perhaps for others. At this time in our evolution, at this time on our planet, I truly believe that one of the main purposes that people are here consciously in their awakened state is to actually dream the earth, to dream her awake. It is our role to put in the seeds of all that we see and all that we envisage the earth to be, in all of her beauty, in all of her succulence, in all of her power. And seeing that throughout our sacred earth, seeing hands spread out to others, assisting, seeing the grass growing, seeing the rich green fields, the fruit hanging strongly, hearing the sounds of the birds, seeing the sea being cleaned, seeing the rivers and the springs, seeing the fish growing in abundance. All of this that we envisage, all that we hold within ourselves, all of our dreams of how the earth could be, I feel is so important right now. And that is tied in also into the Shamanic Precessing, because when we are precessing, we're not just precessing for and with each other, but we're also doing it for the earth, to hold her in sacredness, to be aware of holding space for her. So we have in our tradition in Ireland, we have the wheel, and I see it as the turning of the wheel. And it is an 8-pointed wheel. It has 8 spokes, 4 smaller and 4 larger. And as we turn, as the wheel turns and we move through the turnings of the year, we move from one place to another. We move from one way of being, one energy, one force that comes up through the earth to another. And we're coming to the time of equal light and dark. We're coming to the time of the equinox, a time when we are holding the balance and being aware of how we bring that through us. Where do we choose to place our foots? Where do we choose, and it is choice, where do we choose to be, to act, to speak, to hold space for another? You know, we will never know so often how one act of kindness can change another person and the way they're feeling and what's happening for them right now. Holding the door for somebody, assisting a mother who might have 2 little ones around her while she's trying to pack her bag of shopping. You know, little things that actually make a huge difference, of recognition that we actually share. We share this planet. We don't just share the planet, we share breath. We share this life and living force. And so when we move into Shamanic Precessing, we are holding that a lot more consciously. And we are aware of balancing that within ourselves, claiming our passion, claiming our power, and also our grace. Because the holding of the power and the passion within the essence of grace, within the essence of the feminine, be it a man or a woman, within the essence of the feminine, that we can be with another in their pain as well as in their laughter, in their grief as well as in their joy, that we can hold that space, that we can move into a space and hold the sacred so that they can process whatever is happening for them. And to do that, we need to do that for ourselves first. I truly believe that everything starts from within. Everything starts from within. And so we need to move to that space within ourselves with love, with integrity, and also be able to see that in a way that is discerning rather than subjective, so that we are able to move through it, we are able to work through it, and we are able to embrace all those aspects of ourselves, all those that we love and perhaps all those that we don't like very much. And embracing it all, we come to a place of self with a capital S. We come to self. We come to the acknowledgement of self, to the understanding. You know, knowledge brings us to wisdom, and yet wisdom itself is nothing without understanding. And so in the Shamanic Precessing, we work on ourselves so that we are able to hold that space for and with others.
That's beautiful. I have to tell you, Amantha, the chat room is just jam-packed with lots and lots of men and women that you know from this area, and others across the pond. Hey, Janet Smith, it's great to see you in the chat room. And Laura Smith and Holly Hagan and Peggy Spooner, Donna Thompson, Patty Hersberger, Lily, Kelly, the list goes on and on, Carla Joe. Everyone here to support the show this morning and your teachings as well, of course. And Donna is sharing something. She's saying, Amantha's book is such a treasure to me as one who has studied with her. I can hear her voice in every line, and to have those stories in written form is so sacred. And I couldn't agree more, Donna.
Thank you. And then stories, you know, the oral tradition in Ireland has always been very, very strong. We had the bard originally and the bardic schools, which lasted much, much longer in Ireland than it did in the rest of Europe, I'm told. And after they were eventually disbanded, we had then the Shanakees. The Shanakees were the storytellers and the story keepers, and they would travel from town to town, from village to village, and people would keep them and feed them, and they would tell stories as well as carrying the gossip, the news, you know, that goes on. Of course, everybody loves to hear that as much as they love to hear the stories. And so I'm always loath to put down stories because stories are continuing to evolve. And that's the beauty of the oral tradition in a way, that it continues to evolve. And when we hear the story or listen to the story, we can draw from it what resonates within us. What resonates within us. And stories are so powerful to us. I mean, stories was the original law, L-O-R-E, which gradually, you know, developed into the law, L-A-W. The law told us, the story told us what was right and what was wrong, what worked and what didn't work, and how best we can share that with our children is to tell them the stories. It's the stories that actually will hold them, not just entranced, but to be able to understand too why things work and why things don't, why things are in good relationship or why they're not. And so, yeah, it's lovely, and I've been asked to actually put them on some more of the stories, to put it on a disc, and that's something. Yeah, I'm kind of moving around there in the back of my mind because I'm so much better talking than I am trying to write.
Do you believe, Amantha, that in spiritual practices that the practices continue to evolve just as our consciousness continues to evolve? I've had a lot of conversations with my sisters, Barbara and Del Marie, about how as we evolve as people, there are certain tenets of teachings that may stay the same at the root of the teaching, but that the teachings and the application of the spiritual teachings continues to evolve right along with us. Would you talk about that for a moment, the evolution of?
Yes, and do you know what that brings me to? It brings me to something that Spirit used to say. Now, I started working at the age of 20, and by 22, I was doing trance work, which is, now I know it's a form of shape-shifting, where Spirit would come and talk through me. And for many years, I used to do it with just myself and a dear friend at the time. Being dyslexic, I grew up very, very self-conscious and shy, so I used to keep these sort of things to myself. But Spirit said, around the age of 30, Spirit said, truth is relative, and yet truth is. And I thought about that for a long time. Truth is relative, and yet truth is.
Mm-hmm.
And so I journeyed into that, and I asked, what does that mean exactly? Can you explain it in another way for me so that I can, because I need to see what somebody's saying, not just hear it. I need to see it to be able to grasp it. And they said, what is true for you today might not be true for you next year or even next week. And what is not true for you today could well be true for you next year or even next week. And I thought, okay, I get that. I see that. I see that. As we grow, as we open, as we connect more and more with the essence of our consciousness, which is limitless, the more we're able to see things in a different manner. We're no longer judging. We're no longer taking it personally. But we're able to see it in a different way. We're able to look upon it in a different way. And for me, consciousness is growing at such an exponential rate right now that I truly feel that it's hard for us to keep up with our own consciousness. And so sometimes we will get an understanding, we can't frame it into words, and sometimes we can't even hold it. It goes past and we think, oh no, I was really there with it yesterday and I really got it, and now it's gone again. And it's like, well, it hasn't gone, it is there for you, but it's just that we can't hold it in a mental way. We can't hold on to that because the consciousness has gone beyond the mental body.
Mm-hmm.
And so it does continue to evolve. And should God help us if nothing evolved, if things didn't evolve? This is what life is all about. It's about evolvement.
Mm-hmm.
It's about growing on. And I've always felt, I have 4 children, I have 4 grandchildren, 3 of my grandchildren are adults. My oldest is going to be 20, well, 2 of them are going to be 24 this year, but one soon and one in September. But I've always felt that the highest pinnacle I could reach in my awareness, in my understanding, should be the foundation from which my children grow. It should be the foundation, that they should grow on from me. Not be like me, but move beyond, go beyond, take the gifts, take the understandings, take the lessons that I've gone through and go forth, grow on from that.
Mm-hmm.
And that brings life, that brings continuation of life. Because we know that everything is in movement.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is in movement. And if we want to step off the world for a while, we can, but the world will continue to move on.
And what I love about what you're sharing right now, Amantha, is that the gift that you are giving your children and your grandchildren of carrying it forward allows them to carry it forward in a manner that they are able to carry it forward, that their soul is designed to carry it forward. And that's the same gift that you give your readers and your students. Yes. You don't teach a dogma, you teach a way of connecting with soul, of call it what you will, of the cosmic mind, of Grandmother Earth and Chimaka, an individualized way of connecting that really isn't individualized because you teach people how to become an active part of the weave. But my whole point in this is there are a lot of people who will put down, they will lay it down, a teaching that they've been given, if they've been taught that there's only one way to carry it forward, and if they don't feel, or if they simply cannot carry it forward in that particular way, they will lay it down and miss the beauty of it.
Yes, yes. And I do see that as a dogma. I see that as a patriarchal. And when I say patriarchal, I don't mean just men focused, because I don't see patriarchy as all men. You know, there are a lot of men who are very much in touch with their own femininity and very much standing with their sisters. And I just think that's so beautiful. And I had a father I loved. I have a son I love. I have a brother I love. I have men that I love as brothers, spirit brothers, you know. Mm-hmm. But I do see that as a patriarchal attitude, a hierarchical attitude. And you follow this dogma or, and that's based in fear and that's based in power. Mm-hmm. The way, and I think, you know, even now I'm beginning to think or feel and see, wow, the way of the Shaman, actually it means a lot of things. And it is a way. It is the way for me, but it is a way that can assist others. And if it doesn't assist you, well, I'm sad about that, but that's okay too. Perhaps it will spur you on to find your way. And why not? Mm-hmm. You know, so many of us have within us, within our DNA, we have so much that we carry, so much power, so much understanding. These people went through things we will never have to deal with. Never. The types of famines and droughts and warfare, the pain, the loss, as well as the joys and the beauty and the adventurous spirits. We can actually grow through that. We can recognize that, and we can hold that within us. That holds us. That is our roots, and we grow on from that. And it should continue to evolve. If something doesn't continue to evolve, I would step back and I would bless them, I would nod, and I would move on my way. Mm-hmm. It has to be something that continues to evolve.
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful. And it makes it available, and it makes it feel attainable for people to be able to connect in their own way without feeling shame or blame for not doing it in a specific way. And here I can speak here in the West, in the United States, at least here in the Enchanted Forest at the School of Sacred Studies, we are noticing a proliferation of people wanting to connect with their ancestors and not knowing how to do it because many of the teachings have been lost. And those teachings are coming back. And one of them is, I believe, our connection to Grandmother Earth, the connection that we have. And one of the things I so enjoy, and I know that your readers and students do too, is the way that you teach about our connection to not only Grandmother Earth, but to the seasons themselves. Would you talk about that for a moment as we head into spring?
Yes, yes. So for us, that is the eight-pointed wheel. And you and I have, of course, spoken about how much beauty there is in balancing what we see as our four main points over here in Ireland and the 4 points that you work with on your medicine wheel.
Right.
You know, it's such a lovely fit. You know, it's like hand and glove in a way. And I just think how beautiful is that, you know, across the great waters, the indigenous people here worked in this way and your indigenous people worked that way. And there is such balance in it and such respect. And I think that's beautiful. So for us, the turning of the wheel, we have 8 points, as I said, and we have 4 main points, which are what you would see as midpoints. So the first one, the main one, would be Samhain, which is between the autumn equinox and the winter solstice. So it is the end of October, beginning of November. And for us, that is to do with death. It is to do with coming to an end, whether it's a relationship that's coming to an end, whether it is the ending of a job, the ending of where you are living right now before you move on. It could be any of those and all. And it's very much a day when traditionally we would have honoured the ancestors in Ireland. We would have had the end of the year now, the 30th of October, and the beginning of the year, the 1st of November, and the 31st of October would have been a day that purely belonged to the ancestors. And people would have put out things in honor of their ancestors. We would lay an extra plate at the table, and we would fill that plate. And as night fell, that plate would be put outside for the ancestors. People would sit in each other's houses and talk about the ancestors. They would tell stories. You get any Irish people together, they'll tell stories, you know. And so they would tell the stories. We would eat Kilcannon, which would be mashed potato with cabbage and onions and lots of butter and cream in it, you know. It's a lovely, lovely warming food. The animals would have been brought in. The second harvest would have been completed. People were closing down and closing in, you know, for the winter months. And it was a time when we could connect now with the ancestors. Everything had slowed down in the year. When Christianity took root and became stronger and stronger in Ireland, that became something to be feared. The ancestors became something to be feared, and it was called All Souls Night. And people would put out parsnips, and they would make faces in the parsnips, ugly faces. They would mark out ugly faces, cut out ugly faces in it, and they would put them out to frighten off their ancestors, because they were told that this was bad, this was evil, the ancestors shouldn't be walking that night. And so they would put out the turnips for that. And of course, when the Irish went to America and Canada, they took that tradition with them, but they didn't have the turnips over there. So they had instead the pumpkins. So that's where you get Halloween from. And the cutting of the faces on the pumpkins, it comes from here, you know. Mm-hmm. But it was a very powerful night. It was a very powerful time. It used to be acknowledged throughout Ireland. And the deity that would hold that for me is Clutter. And Clutter would have been originally a monster deity. And for me, she is the gatekeeper between the realms, between this realm and the next. And so if we are working with people who are passing over or souls who might be stuck, then it is to her we bring them. And so then the next turning on the wheel would move us to what is called Imbolc, which is the end of January, beginning of February. And Imbolc means in the belly. So you can see that in the belly. Some people see it as in the womb. And it is the time of the first milk. So the color is white. So black is the color of Samhain and white is the color of Imbolc. And it is the time of the first lambs. It is the time of birth, and it's held by Bridget. And Bridget was originally a great earth goddess. She still is. And she's a triple goddess. She is the keeper of the hearth, the fire. She is the patroness of the arts, and that isn't just the arts as in jewelry making, metal making, etc., but traditionally that would have been the inner arts, the arts of scrying, for example, and things of that nature. And she's also the midwife, the healer. And it's said that the first woman that was made a nun here was given the name Bridget to take the tradition from the pagan tradition into the Christian tradition. What they didn't realize is that actually she had a foot in both camps. And so she set up her nunnery at the place where the temple to the goddess Bridget had been, where the great fire of the goddess Bridget had been lit for thousands of years continuously. And she relit that fire. And she very much personified the whole idea and realization of the goddess with the Christian ethos at that time. And so she fed the poor, she educated them, they took care of the land, they worked with the people. And so Bridget became beloved of the people in Ireland. And even up to the beginning of the 1900s, more people would pray to Bridget than they did to Mary. She was called Mary of the Goyles. And when people would clean their houses for the early spring, they would call upon Bridget to keep the house. When my granny would build up the fire every morning, she would call upon Bridget to keep the fire. So Imbolc is the time of beginnings. It's the seeding. What do we want to put into the earth for this year to be? It's the time of seeding our ideas. And then we move to the time of Bealtaine. And Bealtaine is the end of April, beginning of May, and it is opposite to Samhain. and that is held by the goddess Maeve. And Maeve was originally also a great earth goddess, and it was that each chieftain would lie with a priestess of Maeve to be the head chieftain of the year. And there would be great fires at the time of Bealtaine, and there was a main fire on the hill of Uisneach, and it's said that on Bealtaine Eve all the fires in Ireland would go out, and on the morning of Bealtaine runners would take light from the main fire in the fire temple on Uisneach, and they would start running onto the land, and other runners would take lights from them, and other runners would take lights from them. And by the evening of Bealtaine, all the fires in Ireland were lit from the one fire, which brought a continuity to the people, a connection to the people. Bealtaine is the time of flowering. It's the times when the tribes would meet and arrange things and arrange marriages, etc. And they would meet on the hill of Uisneach. And so it was a time of bargaining, time of coming together. For me, it is the flowering, the self-flowering, finding our own flower, being able to be open to our passion. And I don't just mean sexual passion, but I mean a passion for something. We have a saying in Ireland, to eat and drink of life. It's waking up to that passion of life, passion of how life moves you, how you can be open and awake to life. And that's very much in the place of Bealtaine, the awakening. And also often the union that comes there too. And then we move from Bealtaine to Lunasa, which is the end of July, beginning of August, held by the deity Tieltu. And she was an older deity, older than the Tua De Danann, the gods and goddesses of the land. She was a Firbolg deity, and she took care of Lu. Lu was fostered to her. He was the sun god, and through his love of her, he started the Great Games in her honor. And they started here, and that was about 800 years approximately before the Olympic Games started. And that's the time of gathering our fruit. So what we've put out, the flowering of it at Bealtaine, and the fruit, the gathering of the harvest at Lunasa. And then we have the four smaller points, which is the east, which is what we're coming to now, and the place of Boan. And of course, this is the spring equinox, the balance of light and dark. And I really feel, especially because it's been a very difficult winter for all of us, a very difficult time. And what has evolved through the last 14 months has really brought us into a place where there are so many polarities that we're no longer meeting in the middle anymore. We're no longer able to discuss things, to recognize each other's differences, to acknowledge them, and to move on through that too. To move on through that. Now it's one or it's the other. And these polarities are actually hurting us. They're hurting us energetically as well as mentally and physically. Mm-hmm. And this acknowledgement of realizing that we're actually at that point right now. We're coming into that balance of light and dark, of night and day. We can carry the light forward. We can recognize what's happening. We can understand, hopefully, how people are feeling inside, and the chaos and the fear and the consternation of all that is happening. We have to hold that light. We have to be the light bringers. And to hold that light in ourselves, within ourselves, so that everything we speak, everything we think, and how we act is filled with that light. Let us bring in the spring equinox with our own presence of light. Let us be light-filled. Let us bring this into the summer months. Let us open our awareness, our consciousness. Let us not close down or close off to those who we disagree with, but let us just hold light. Let us hold understanding. Let us just acknowledge but not engage. And I really feel coming into this time, it's so important. It's the time for us of Boan, and Boan would be a very ancient deity. It's said that she brought down the Milky Way when the earth was moving from liquid gas into solid form. She drew down the Milky Way, and it flowed out of her breasts into the River Boyne. And the River Boyne protects an area that we call Brúna Boyne in Ireland. It's the oldest engineered buildings in the world, Newgrange, Knowth and Douth, known as places of ritual. 5,000 years old. And the river runs around that area. And bow in Irish is cow. It's white. So we have the white river here that flows around. And the holding of that space, Boann brings us to the place of dreaming. What is it we dream of? Have we got dreams that we hold? And especially as parents, we often dream for our children. We hope for our children. We pray for our children and our children's children. But what about our own dreams? What do we hold for ourselves? And now, talking of the shamanic precessing, we are dreaming for the earth. We're dreaming for the earth. So this is a really powerful time. And the more we can be with that, and I'm not going to say focus, because focus can take energy, just to be with that energy. The more we can be with that, the more it will manifest through us. We don't have to pull it out of us. We don't have to try and find it within us. We have to be open to what lies within and what can move through us. That doesn't take energy from us. Actually, it fills us. It fills us with delight. And it also connects us to others who are opening and flowing in that way too. So I see moving to this spring equinox at the moment, very, very powerful time. And then we move on the wheel down to the south, which is the place of Anya, the summer solstice. And she is the fairy queen and the summer solstice goddess. And it's a time when the veil between the realms is at its thinnest. And of course in Ireland, our veil between the realms is pretty thin anyway. So when we come to the summer solstice, it's even thinner, especially in some places more than others. And so it's a time of connecting to those betwixt and between, a time of recognizing. People would put out gifts for the fairy folk, tie ribbons around certain trees, and being aware of the delight of energy that can come through at that time. The fairy queen, allowing ourselves to be light, allowing ourselves to play, allowing ourselves to be filled. It's a time of inspiration. Anya brings the inspiration of life force into the fruit that is growing, because the fruit grows after Bealtaine, between Bealtaine and Lunasa, and this is the summer solstice. So she brings that inspiration of life force into the fruit, into the vegetables that we will partake of when they are fully grown. And then we move to the place of the west, the autumn equinox, and for me that is the place of Macha. And Macha is another ancient deity, and she holds the cave of our becoming and the cave of our undoing. Everything that we have been taught, everything we have been told, verbally and non-verbally, that is not accepted about ourselves, everything that we judge ourselves for, goes into this cave and stays in that cave, hidden. And we will often draw forth an ally, an animal helper, to protect our cave. So you try and get into my cave and my claw might come out, or my tongue might spit, don't go in there. And yet if we don't go into our own cave and embrace all that we are, it is our becoming, because there'll always be that fear within us that somebody will see through us. And when we go in, when we embrace, then we become all that we are meant to be. We are filled with all, and we balance that within ourselves. We need to embrace, most importantly, we need to embrace our power as a people and as women too. We have been disempowered for generations upon generations. We have been told you have to do this, you can't do that. This is good, this is bad, this is a sin. Give yourself away. Give it to me. But this is us. This is our power. This is who we are. We need to stand in our power as powerful, soul-impregnated personalities, to be all that we are meant to be. Power isn't evil. Power can be the power of love, the power of giving, the power of seeing. It's not power that's evil. It's what people do with it. So we can stand in the power, i.e. the essence, literally the essence of who we are. To be that, to hold that, to know that, to allow that to flow through us, so that when we say no, when we say enough, people get it. They get it.
Mm-hmm.
And when we open and share and laugh with our mouth open and our heads thrown back, it's who we are.
Mm-hmm.
It's who we are. And then we move to the place of the north, the Kaliak. She who holds it all. She who holds it all. Kaliak is the hag, the crone, the ancient one. And in Ireland, we have many places in Ireland dedicated to her, because we know that it is to her we will return. We are all born of the womb, and we return to the tomb. We return to her, whether we go in ashes or whether we go as bones and blood and skin. It all breaks down into the earth. It all goes back into the earth. It all becomes part of that grows from the earth, the fruit, the flowers, the grass. The animals will eat of that. The people eat the animals. The fruit, the vegetables that grow through that, and we eat those. The water that we drink, it's all holding our ancestors. The very air that we breathe. The very air that we breathe is the breath of our ancestors. She holds it all. And as we grow on, we see it, we start to see her in us. We see her in our body. We begin to see her in the lines on our face and the folds on our body. We begin to see her in our eyes. We begin to see that look, that knowing, that wildness that lies deep within. And the north is the place of rest, replenishment. And she is there between death and birth. She holds that place betwixt and between. She tells us that when we finish a job or when we finish a relationship, we need to rest. We need to be replenished. All that we've done in the months of the year, when we come to the winter, it's time to rest. It's time to replenish. We can't keep giving out. We have to allow ourselves to be fed too. And we have to allow all that's happened to us, whether it's in life, in a relationship, in the job, whatever it is, we need time to balance that within ourselves. We need time to address these things, to see what it is and how it's touched us, how it's moved us. Are we holding on to it? Can we let it go? Can we work through it? Whatever it is that needs to be, we can only do that when we gift ourselves space. And she gifts us that. She holds that space for us in the north. Sorry, I've gone on a bit, haven't I?
It's wonderful. From where I'm sitting here, I'm looking at the beautiful, beautiful art piece that I purchased last year in Ireland with you. Helen O'Sullivan's beautiful edition of the Kaliak, here on the wall. And I keep her here with me in the direction of the north on the northern wall. One of the things that I wanted to say is that, and to offer, is that you will be facilitating the Shamanic Precessing via webinar due to the circumstances that we find ourselves in around Grandmother at this time. And so from wherever you happen to be around Grandmother, you can join in next weekend. If you go to the webinars page at schoolofsacredstudies.com, you will find the information pertaining to registering for the webinar. It's over 2 days, Saturday and Sunday, but it's not all day long. It's for just a few hours each of those days. And Amantha, to further that, would you talk about who might be interested or who should come to those classes? Are there any limitations?
No limitations. We say Shamanic Precessing, and if there is any man that feels drawn to that too, then fair play to you. That's great. People that have worked with me, of course you will understand it much quicker, I should imagine, but it is open for all. It is open for all. It stands on its own. When we do the apprenticeship, Shamanic Precessing itself is part of our level 2. It is in the middle world, and I do go into it in a deeper way in the apprenticeship. But this is actually a standalone weekend.
Perfect. And for those of you that are out there wondering, well, does that really work with what I've currently been practicing or what I've been taught? And I'm here to say that, for myself, because I'm somebody who practices, I grew up Catholic, but I practice the pipe way. In other words, I have a pipe, a chanupa, and my teachers are Lakota elders who teach me the way of the pipe. And at the same time, although I pour inipis or sweat lodges and I do those ceremonies in the traditional way that the elders have taught me, what Amantha teaches enhances that. It brings another dimension that speaks to another part of my ancestry. The Seminole ancestry and the Creek ancestry that's in my blood and my bones responds very well to the Chanupa and the Inipi and the traditional teachings. But the Irish within me says, oh, I'm home. And it complements, it feeds the other. One feeds the other. So this is not an exclusive way, but I do feel as though whatever your practice is, and whether or not you have an ounce of Irish within your blood and bones, it speaks to your soul, and it speaks to a connection with Grandmother Earth that is beautifully unique and wonderfully available for all. And that's how Amantha teaches. She makes it available in a way that each of us is able to take it in and walk with it and work with it. So please have a look on the webinars page at schoolofsacredstudies.com. And we are at the top of the hour, Amantha, so how would you like to leave?
I would like to leave with asking you all to remember to dream the earth. Please, even if it's just while you're at traffic lights or waiting in the queue at the grocery store, or before you go to sleep at night, or while you're waiting for the kettle to boil, perhaps. Dream the earth awake. Dream the dreams of how you can envisage of what can be. On my YouTube page, I do have a recording of me talking about the earth dreams, with some pictures in the background, and my son put some music, bless him, in the back of that too. But to me, that is one of the most important things right now that we should all be doing, to move out of the personal. Let's move out of the personal. Let's not take everything so personally. Move out. About 5 years ago, it came so strongly to me, don't take it personally, and it was my teachings for all the years since then to say to people while we're working, don't take it personally. But I feel that even more. Don't take things so personally. We are here to dream the earth, to dream her awake, to dream her into her being. This is happening right here and right now. This isn't tomorrow. This is here and now. Dream the earth. Let every step you take be a prayer upon her body. Every time you hear the birds sing, every time you see another flower unfold, every time you feel the wind or the breeze, the rain or the sun, the clouds or the blue sky, place your intentions of how you see the earth to be, because that will be there for those yet to be, for our children's 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 children. That will be there because we will have dreamed it. We are tomorrow's ancestors. And let them know that this is something we have done in honor of them too. Thank you.
Thank you, Amantha. And thank you to everyone in the chat room for being there, and to everyone around Grandmother Earth this morning who is listening in, and those that will catch us in the archives. Thank you for being. And Amantha, as always, I look forward to seeing you next weekend, and look forward to the day that I get to see your lovely face in person.
Me too, Denise. Can't wait. Can't wait to see you both and to walk upon your sacred land again.
Have a beautiful day, everyone. Have a gorgeous day, Amantha.
Thank you. Many blessings.